You know that saying, there's no such thing as a bad question? It's not true. There are a lot of really bad questions out there. You know, the kind that can't be answered without taking a step back and addressing the false assumptions being pushed into the question to begin with. Here's an example for you.
So let's say like a new scripture was uncovered, and then there's a new council of Trent or whatever council goes about examining a scripture and implementing it if it is found to be legitimate. And this new scripture says that it is it's like morally good to beat your wife if she talks back to you. Would you then do that?
This is actually kind of a common question type directed at Christians. Not the wife beating part, but the idea that if there was some type of new revelation found in a newly discovered manuscript, would we, as Christians, follow the new instructions? But there are two problems with this type of question. The first is often the hypothetical scenario presented by the questioner is something completely contradictory to what we know about the God of the Bible. It would be like, for example, asking a Muslim, if Allah told you to worship Jesus and love the infidel, would you do it? The question is flawed because if such a command were to come from Allah, it would require completely reimagining the core of who Allah is, and it would thus change him beyond recognition. So if such a command came from Allah, Allah, as the Muslims understand him to be, no longer exists. So who's the one actually giving the order to love Jesus and the infidel? The same is true for Christians. If scripture, which is inspired by God, would reveal that God wanted men to beat their wives, it would mean the God we understood to exist actually didn't. Because the God of the Bible would never make such a command. The second problem with this type of question is it often reveals what a low opinion, or at least a poor understanding, the questioner has of Christian theology and scholarship. It puts Christian doctrine on the same level as, if the Bible told you to jump off a building, would you do it? And that's just not how it works. Christian scholars over the centuries have compiled literally thousands of copies of manuscripts, some as early as the 1st century, and looked at how they weave together to create a coherent view of God, humanity, good, evil, and eternity. So when things show up in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, that seem to contradict another part, scholars don't just cut it out or dismiss it. They stop and they ask themselves, okay, what's going on here? What is the cultural and political context of this passage? Who is the author? What is the intent of the author? Who are they writing to? And so on and so on. But few people are aware of the rich legacy of thinkers that Christianity stems from. And why would they when our schools were forced to stop talking about it almost a century ago? And modern day Christians are typically urged to follow their feelings more than their Bibles a lot of the time. So with all that in mind, it's not surprising that believers today get asked questions like this one. And it's also not surprising that many of them wouldn't know how to answer.